The human brain is wired to crave sweetness. It's a survival instinct that once guided our ancestors toward ripe fruits and energy-rich foods, but in the modern world, this instinct has been hijacked. Food manufacturers have turned that natural craving into a billion-dollar trap. Every brightly colored dessert, every frosted cupcake, every spoonful of ice cream is designed not to nourish, but to keep you hooked. The sweetness you taste is no longer simple sugar from nature. It's a combination of refined chemicals and engineered additives that light up your brain like a drug. With every bite, you reinforce the cycle. Pleasure, crash, craving, repeat. It's not willpower that's failing, it's chemistry working against you. Walk down any grocery aisle and you'll see desserts presented as innocent pleasures, harmless treats for a long day. The packaging promises comfort, joy, reward. But behind those glossy labels is an industrial process that removes nutrients, replaces natural ingredients with cheap substitutes, and pumps in enough sugar to overwhelm your system. What used to be occasional indulgence has turned into a daily habit, and your body is paying for it. Excess sugar doesn't just lead to weight gain, it triggers inflammation, disrupts hormones, and burdens your liver with fat. The very thing that gives you a moment of happiness quietly destroys your balance from within. The average person consumes far more sugar than the human body was ever meant to handle. Dessert culture has normalized it. A slice of cake at a birthday, a donut at the office, a bowl of ice cream after dinner. Each moment feels small, but together they build a foundation for addiction. You begin to crave not the flavor itself, but the rush it gives you, the way sugar floods your bloodstream, and gives you that quick spike of pleasure. Then, as your blood sugar crashes, your body screams for more. You chase that feeling again, unaware that the chemical reward is dulling your natural sense of taste, making real food less satisfying and your cravings stronger. Food companies understand this psychology better than anyone. They invest millions in research to find the perfect blend of sugar, fat, and texture that makes you keep eating even when you're full. The goal isn't to satisfy you, it's to make you dependent. That's why processed desserts are everywhere, from checkout counters to coffee shops, placed strategically to tempt you when your guard is down. You think you're making a choice, but the choice was made for you long before you picked up the spoon. The problem goes deeper than calories or fat content. These desserts manipulate the brain's dopamine pathways, the same system triggered by addictive substances. Every time you indulge, your brain releases a burst of dopamine, making you feel rewarded. Over time, though, your brain adapts, demanding more sugar to achieve the same level of pleasure. What once felt like a small treat becomes a daily necessity, and before long, you're trapped in the loop of reward and withdrawal. It's not about self-control anymore. It's biology rewritten by processed sweetness. The impact doesn't stop at cravings. High sugar intake has been linked to chronic fatigue, mood swings, anxiety, and even depression. Creates a roller coaster of energy highs and lows, leaving you exhausted and irritable. And when you try to quit, your body resists, mistaking the absence of sugar for deprivation. That's why cutting out dessert feels like a struggle. It's not just about resisting temptation, it's about rewiring your brain and restoring balance to your body's natural rhythms. Even the perception of light, or low-fat, desserts adds to the deception. When fat is removed, manufacturers increase sugar to preserve flavor. When sugar is reduced, they replace it with artificial sweeteners that confuse your body and disrupt insulin response. You might believe you're making a healthier choice, but the reality is often worse. These substitutes trick your brain into expecting calories that never come, throwing off hunger signals and making you eat more later. It's a vicious design that ensures one thing: you keep coming back for another bite. Behind every glossy advertisement and every perfectly glazed donut is a calculated system of addiction disguised as pleasure. The bright colors, the creamy textures, the comforting aroma, all of it carefully engineered to stimulate your senses and bypass your logic. You tell yourself it's just dessert, a harmless indulgence after a long day, but deep down your body knows the cost. It's not just sugar you're consuming, it's control, convenience, and illusion, all wrapped in sweetness that was never meant to serve your health. The danger of modern desserts doesn't always lie in their visible sweetness, but in the hidden ingredients that quietly erode your health from the inside out. Most people assume sugar is the only villain, but the truth runs much deeper. The food industry has mastered the art of disguise. Behind every natural flavor label, every creamy texture, every fresh baked scent hides a mix of synthetic chemicals, stabilizers, and additives that the average person can't even pronounce. These ingredients aren't there for taste or nutrition. They exist to preserve, manipulate, and addict. You eat them without question, not realizing that what you're consuming barely qualifies as food. One of the most deceptive substances found in modern desserts is the so-called natural flavor. It sounds innocent, even healthy, but this term is legally vague. It can mean a compound derived from an original natural source, but heavily processed with chemicals in a lab. One natural flavor can contain over 100 different chemicals blended to simulate a taste your brain recognizes as real. That vanilla cupcake. It may contain no real vanilla at all, just engineered compounds that trick your senses into believing it does. The same goes for chocolate, strawberry, or caramel. You're not tasting the Earth's ingredients. You're tasting chemistry's imitation of them. Then there are the preservatives, those invisible protectors that keep desserts fresh for weeks, even months. Substances like BHA, BHT, and sodium benzoate are added to prevent mold and oxidation, but they do something else too. They accumulate inside you. Over time, these chemicals can interfere with your endocrine system, disrupt hormones, strain your liver. They create a slow toxicity that builds quietly, leaving you with fatigue, brain fog, inflammation you can't easily trace back to your favorite cookie or slice of pie. The irony is that these preservatives don't keep the food alive, they keep it dead longer, and that lifelessness transfers to the body that consumes it. Artificial colors are another layer of deception used to make desserts appear vibrant and appetizing. Shades of red, blue, yellow, green are derived from petroleum-based dyes that have been linked to hyperactivity, allergies, and behavioral changes, especially in children. A strawberry glaze may glow a little too bright, or a cupcake frosting might shimmer in pastel perfection, but behind that beauty lies a chemical reality your body struggles to process. Color was once a sign of freshness and vitality, now it's a sign of marketing illusion. The more vivid the dessert looks, the further it is from anything naturally nourishing. Perhaps the most disturbing ingredient of all is the industrial oil. Hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils are used to give desserts their perfect texture, crispy edges, smooth frosting, rich creaminess. But these oils are a silent destroyer. They contain trans fats, which not only raise bad cholesterol, but also damage the lining of your arteries and trigger inflammation throughout the body. In desserts, they act as the foundation, binding all other harmful elements together into something irresistibly palatable. You think you're indulging in comfort food, but what you're actually eating is the chemical architecture of addiction. And then there's the presence of compounds like propylene glycol, used in ice cream and frosting to maintain softness. It's the same chemical used in antifreeze, repurposed for your dessert bowl. It doesn't taste strange or look dangerous, it just keeps the product appealing for longer. When you see a tub of ice cream that never seems to melt properly, that silky texture isn't nature. It's a controlled illusion created through industrial science. The convenience of smooth and creamy comes at the cost of burdening your body with compounds that have no place in human digestion. Even the sugar itself isn't always what it seems. Many desserts use high fructose corn syrup instead of real sugar because it's cheaper and more addictive. It floods your bloodstream faster, bypasses natural satiety cues, and leaves your body craving more even after you're full. Combine that with artificial sweeteners like sucralose or aspartame, common in sugar-free desserts, and the confusion multiplies. These fake sugars disrupt your gut microbiome, confuse your insulin response, and make you hungrier later. You think you're cutting calories, but you're actually deepening your dependence on sweetness. Desserts, in their commercial form, have become a science experiment masked as food. Every bite delivers not nourishment but manipulation. The textures that melt perfectly on your tongue, the flavors that linger just long enough to make you want another taste, the scent that triggers nostalgia, all of it engineered to keep you emotionally and chemically attached. You're no longer responding to hunger or satisfaction. You're responding to the subtle push of design. Each ingredient works in harmony not to heal, but to hold you captive to the illusion of indulgence. The saddest part is how normal it's become. Generations have grown up believing this is what dessert tastes like, unaware that real flavor once came from nature itself. the simplicity of ingredients, milk, fruit, cocoa, honey, has been replaced by an orchestra of synthetic formulas, all made to simulate what we lost. The food looks beautiful, the packaging feels comforting, but inside it's hollow. It delivers nothing but fleeting pleasure followed by fatigue, imbalance, and the quiet erosion of vitality that most people will never trace back to what they ate after dinner. The illusion of freshness is one of the most powerful tricks the modern food industry plays, especially when it comes to bakery and restaurant desserts. The warm glow of a pastry shop, the smell of muffins baking, the glossy surface of a cheesecake, all of it creates a sense of homemade comfort that feels safe and nostalgic. But beneath that charm lies the same industrial system that fills grocery shelves with packaged junk. The difference is presentation. These desserts are engineered to look handcrafted, yet they often contain the same refined flours, sugars, oils, and artificial flavors as factory-made snacks. You might think you're treating yourself to something real and artisanal, but what you're often eating is a carefully disguised processed product, dressed up to feel authentic. When you bite into a muffin from a popular coffee chain, you're not tasting simplicity, you're tasting a recipe optimized for profit and addiction. The average bakery muffin contains more sugar than a can of soda, more oil than a fast food burger, and a list of preservatives that would make any home baker pause. Even the freshly baked label is deceptive. Most of these goods are made in centralized factories, frozen for weeks, then thawed and warmed in store to give the illusion of being baked that day. The scent you smell isn't always from baking, it's often artificial aroma pumped into the air to trigger your appetite and create that cozy atmosphere that makes you want to buy more. Cheesecakes and layered desserts served in restaurants carry a similar deception. They appear rich, creamy, and indulgent, crafted with care and quality, but behind the curtain, they're typically built on a base of cream cheese blends, sugar syrups, and stabilizers. A single slice can deliver more than 1,000 calories and dozens of grams of sugar, yet the flavor convinces you it's worth it. What you don't see are the fillers that make it so thick and the emulsifiers that keep it from separating while it sits for days in a display case. That smooth perfection you see on your plate is not the result of culinary skill. It's the precision of chemical engineering. Pastries and croissants are another trap disguised as luxury. The flakiness that feels so satisfying comes from layers of margarine or shortening rather than real butter. Many commercial bakeries use hydrogenated oils because they're cheaper and extend shelf life. These oils harden inside the body, clogging arteries and causing long-term inflammation, yet their taste and texture mimic richness so effectively that you rarely notice the difference. The same applies to glazes and creams. Most are made from powdered mixes and reconstituted dairy substitutes, not fresh ingredients. The result is a dessert that looks handmade, but offers none of the nourishment or authenticity it promises. Even the smallest indulgences, like cookies from a coffee shop display, carry the same hidden cost. They're mass-produced, flash-frozen, reheated to create the illusion of freshly baked treats. The warmth in your hand doesn't come from a baker's oven but from industrial reheating machines that revive their softness just long enough for you to feel comforted. The ingredients list often includes palm oil, corn syrup, and artificial flavorings meant to imitate vanilla, chocolate, or butter. What feels like nostalgia is actually chemistry designed to trick your senses into satisfaction. Restaurants aren't exempt from this illusion either. Many high-end desserts that look handcrafted arrive at the kitchen frozen, pre-sliced, and pre-decorated. Chains and independent eateries alike often rely on mass suppliers who provide ready-to-serve desserts that only need plating. It's efficient, it's profitable, it allows for consistency. But it also means that what lands on your table might have been created weeks or even months ago. The only thing fresh about it is the garnish sprinkled before serving. The presentation fools you, but the substance remains the same industrial formula you'd find in a supermarket box. The psychological manipulation behind these desserts is powerful. People associate baked goods and sweets with warmth, celebration, and care. The food industry understands this emotional connection and uses it to its advantage. The word fresh has become a marketing tool, not a truth. The smell of bread or cookies triggers memory, comfort, and hunger all at once, creating an emotional link that overrides logic. When you're standing in line, that scent isn't just tempting you, it's programming you to crave something your body doesn't need. By the time you take the first bite, you've already surrendered to the illusion. What's even more deceptive is how these desserts are framed as occasional indulgences. It's just one slice, just one pastry, just a little treat after lunch. But in reality, those small indulgences build up into habits. Habits form patterns of dependency. When your idea of comfort food is built on artificial sweetness and refined flour, your emotional well-being becomes tied to foods that destabilize your body. You start craving the same flavors whenever you're stressed, bored, or sad, mistaking emotional relief for nourishment. The dessert becomes a psychological escape, not a pleasure of taste. Beneath the shiny glaze and delicate layers lies the truth that these desserts are not made to comfort you but to keep you coming back. The balance of fat, sugar, and artificial flavor is calculated to hit your brain's reward system with precision. It's the modern version of temptation, engineered indulgence disguised as warmth. You think you're treating yourself, but you're being treated by design. The illusion of freshness is a perfect lie because it feeds both your senses and your emotions while slowly dulling your connection to what real food, real flavor, real satisfaction are supposed to feel like. The modern world has made dessert consumption effortless. You can walk into any store and find shelves lined with pies, cookies, candy bars, and boxed cake mixes promising instant sweetness. It's convenience disguised as comfort, pleasure wrapped in plastic. But the truth behind these treats is far less appealing. Store-bought pies are filled with synthetic fruit flavors and bleached flour crusts that crumble into your bloodstream as sugar. Boxed mixes contain preservatives and leavening agents designed for longevity, not nourishment. Candy bars, those quick fixes of joy, are a masterclass in manipulation, crafted with perfect ratios of fat and sugar to keep you craving them long after the wrapper hits the trash. The sweetness feels like reward, but it's a reward that comes at the expense of your body's balance and your mind's clarity. Every bite of these processed desserts reinforces the cycle of dependency. You eat to feel good, to take a break from stress, to escape for a moment. But the chemicals inside these foods, artificial sweeteners, emulsifiers, and high fructose corn syrup, don't bring calm. They bring chaos to your system. They cause your blood sugar to spike rapidly, flooding you with false energy, only to crash you into fatigue and irritability a short while later. This roller coaster of energy and emotion creates the illusion that you need another bite, another piece, another sugar hit to feel okay again. It's not pleasure anymore, it's survival through stimulation. Yet, somewhere beneath the layers of manipulation, there's a path back to real sweetness. The human body doesn't crave chemicals, it craves nourishment, it craves balance. Real desserts made from natural ingredients can still satisfy the desire for something delicious without the aftermath of guilt and fatigue. Dark chocolate, for instance, is more than an indulgence. It's a source of magnesium and antioxidants that support heart and brain health. It triggers serotonin production, the very chemical that boosts mood and relaxation, but it does so without overwhelming your body. A few squares of pure, 70% or higher dark chocolate can give you that feeling of comfort and reward that lasts longer and doesn't leave you chasing another high. Homemade fruit parfaits tell a similar story of transformation. Layers of Greek yogurt, fresh berries, raw honey create a natural sweetness that the body understands. The probiotics in the yogurt feed the gut, the antioxidants in the fruit protect the cells, and the honey adds a warmth that feels both indulgent and grounding. Unlike processed desserts, these ingredients work with your biology instead of against it. They support digestion, stabilize blood sugar, and bring sustained energy instead of fleeting pleasure. It's proof that sweetness doesn't need to be synthetic to be satisfying. It just needs to be real. When you choose real desserts, you reclaim control over your relationship with food. You begin to taste the difference between sweetness that nourishes and sweetness that numbs. You start noticing how artificial desserts leave you feeling heavy or restless, while natural ones leave you feeling calm and content. The shift isn't just physical, it's psychological. The more your body experiences genuine nourishment, the less it seeks artificial highs. Over time, your taste buds reset, your cravings fade, your sense of satisfaction deepens. This shift also redefines indulgence. True indulgence isn't excess. It's appreciation. It's slowing down to savor a square of dark chocolate, to enjoy the texture of ripe fruit, to experience sweetness as an act of mindfulness rather than escape. The store-bought desserts teach you to eat without thought, to consume without connection. But when you prepare something from real ingredients, even something simple, reconnect with the act of creation. You turn dessert from an impulse into an experience. It's not about denying pleasure, it's about finding pleasure that doesn't punish you afterward. Choosing what to avoid and what to embrace becomes a personal act of liberation. You don't have to swear off sweetness forever, you simply have to choose the kind that gives more than it takes. Avoid the boxed mixes and the factory pies, the desserts that promise instant happiness but deliver hidden exhaustion. Choose the foods that are close to their natural state, that remind you how flavor and health were never meant to be opposites. When you eat something real, your body recognizes it. It knows how to process it, how to use it, how to thrive on it. The beauty of this awareness is that it spreads beyond dessert. Once you understand the difference between artificial and authentic indulgence, you start seeing it everywhere. In your habits, your choices, your mindset. You stop rewarding yourself with things that harm you and start celebrating yourself with things that heal. The sweetness you once sought from a plastic wrapper begins to come from a deeper place: self-respect, balance, and presence. Dessert becomes symbolic, a reminder that pleasure isn't found in excess but in essence. You realize that the true flavor of life isn't in the sugary highs, but in the quiet satisfaction of knowing you're feeding your body and soul the way they were meant to be fed. The relationship between sweetness and satisfaction has been twisted by the modern world. What was once a natural pleasure, a simple gift from fruits or honey, has been turned into an addiction that dulls the senses and clouds the mind. The body is not designed to process endless streams of refined sugar, artificial syrups, chemical substitutes. It was built to recognize nourishment, to draw strength from nature's simplicity. When dessert becomes a product of laboratories instead of kitchens, that connection is broken. The sweetness that should comfort begins to control. The more you indulge, the less you feel, until dessert no longer nourishes, it numbs. Real sweetness is not supposed to make you crash or crave more. It's meant to bring balance. It's a sensory experience that connects you to life's rhythm, not an escape from it. When you eat something real, made with care and natural ingredients, your body understands it. It responds with gratitude rather than confusion. The flavors awaken you instead of sedating you. But when you rely on processed sweets, your body becomes lost in a chemical fog. It can no longer tell the difference between what feeds it and what drains it. Sugar floods your bloodstream, dopamine floods your brain, and for a few fleeting moments you feel comforted. Then comes the emptiness, the fatigue, the quiet anxiety that whispers for another bite. You're not chasing sweetness, you're chasing balance that your body can no longer find. True dessert, the kind that nourishes, is born out of mindfulness. It comes from choosing ingredients that support life instead of stealing from it. A small bowl of fruit drizzled with raw honey, a few pieces of dark chocolate, a spoonful of homemade yogurt. These aren't just foods, they're acts of respect. They honor your body's intelligence and your mind's need for peace. They show that pleasure doesn't have to come from excess, but from awareness. The first bite of something real feels richer because it doesn't overwhelm your senses. It engages them. The sweetness lingers because it's connected to texture, aroma, and emotion. It's an experience, not a rush. When you eat with awareness, even the smallest treat becomes meaningful. You start to notice how sweetness behaves differently when it's real. It doesn't burn or feel sticky, it feels grounded, almost gentle. Your body doesn't react with urgency or guilt, it relaxes. The craving that once felt uncontrollable becomes softer, quieter. You begin to crave quality over quantity, flavor over fullness. This shift marks the difference between feeding emotion and feeding energy. The mind learns that peace doesn't come from consumption, it comes from connection. This understanding reaches beyond dessert itself, becomes a philosophy of living. Every time you choose something authentic, whether it's food, a moment, or a relationship, you align yourself with truth rather than illusion. The same way a real dessert satisfies with less, a real life fulfills without constant seeking. Stop looking for artificial highs, sugar, distraction, validation, and start appreciating the subtle sweetness of presence. Dessert becomes a mirror for your habits. The way you eat reflects the way you live. When you eat mindlessly, you live mindlessly. When you savor, you see clearly. The act of nourishment extends into self-mastery. Learning to enjoy sweetness without letting it control you is a lesson in emotional strength. You begin to understand your impulses, to observe them without giving in. The need for dessert becomes symbolic, the desire for comfort, for softness, for a reward after effort. But now, instead of reaching for what harms you, you choose what honors you. You realize that indulgence doesn't have to mean surrender, can mean gratitude. A piece of dark chocolate enjoyed slowly can offer more satisfaction than a whole cake eaten without thought. It's not the quantity of sweetness that fulfills you, it's the quality of your attention. Real sweetness is harmony. It's found in the balance between discipline and delight, awareness and enjoyment. It asks you to pause, to taste, to feel. It's not loud or addictive, it's subtle and sustaining. It doesn't leave you chasing another bite, it leaves you whole. When you replace artificial desserts with natural, mindful sweetness, you're not just changing your diet, you're transforming your relationship with pleasure itself. You're reminding yourself that joy doesn't have to come with regret, that nourishment can be beautiful, and that food, at its best, is an act of self-love. In this understanding, dessert becomes sacred. It's no longer about filling a void, but celebrating the moment. Each bite becomes a reminder that true pleasure doesn't come from abundance, but from alignment. To nourish rather than numb is to return to yourself. To rediscover what sweetness was always meant to be, a quiet affirmation that life, when approached with awareness, is already sweet enough.